Thank you very much, Arnold. I also want to thank the three speakers who did come after Themba. We had Gishohi from the UN Resident Coordinator's Office. We had Gloria from the National Youth Council, serving as the CEO of the National Youth Council. And we also had William from the State Department for Economic and Planning, who has also joined us as the last speaker within that session. We'll quickly swing into a quick session of our three last speakers for the day, and these are actually have been very involved within the process of the development of the Pact of the Future, as well as different other engagements. Some of them have been present during the Summit of the Future that was happening, that then came out with the Pact of the Future as one of the key documents that came out of the Summit of the Future last year. And also, it's important to remember that the Pact of the Future has two annexes. One is the Global Digital Compact, and the second one is the Declaration on Future Generations. So these are very important also to bring out as key things that have come out of all supporting documents of the Pact of the Future that also young people can rally around because these are very, very important declarations or compacts that have come out and are supportive of the overarching Pact of the Future framework. So to start us with, I will bring this conversation home to Linda. Linda Kitela is a UN youth representative for Kenya, and she is also a youth researcher with the AU-EU Youth Voices Lab. And Linda has been very instrumental in the process of the Summit of the Future and the development of the Pact of the Future, starting all the way from giving high-level recommendations and being involved in the process of the development of the Pact of the Future. So Linda, thank you so much for joining us, and it's a pleasure to have you join us here today. And as the youth representative for Kenya to the UN, we'd like to hear from you in terms of what does this mean in terms of the Pact of the Future or the general overarching engagement of young people within the role of young people playing at a larger spectrum of decision-making in global platforms like the Summit of the Future, the UN General Assembly, and other high-level UN convenings. What does that look like, and how does that engagement of young people look like in terms of the evolving framework of the UN? Gishohi, who was here with us, has just mentioned about the evolving model of the UN strategy on youth, the UN Youth 2030 strategy, and the most recently that has been enhanced. What is the role of young people who are listening today in terms of this evolving strategies of the UN to continuously position young people at the heart of decision making, especially with the Pact of the Future?
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Timothy. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, wherever you're watching. My name is Linda Kitela, as mentioned, and I would go straight to the question that Timothy asked: what is the role of young people in decision-making spaces? I would reiterate to what Gloria said earlier, that young people are the majority, are the custodians of all these policies that we have in place. And we're getting this from the demographic, bulge or demographic dividends that we have across. So having a larger population of young people and having them not really included, because if you look at the ratio at which young people are included and the ratio at which, the population of young people, that ratio is not fair. But then their role there is to draw out that blueprint that, yes, we can model, we acknowledge the contribution of the older generation in the spaces of the decision-making spaces because they come with experience and expertise. But in terms of modeling implementation, young people have to be there. They have to be seen by the fellow young people in their countries for them to be like, okay, so it's not an old man, it's not an expertise space. It's actually something I can do in my own grassroots level. I can model these things and implement them locally. So we've seen an evolution of youth involvement in policy-making spaces. We've seen it from, involvement through manipulation or basic involvement just to tick boxes. But where we are right now, especially in Kenya, we have seen it growing from the point of manipulation to intentional partnership. We can admit that people are right now engaging young people intentionally with actually the hope of listening to them. We've seen young people being integrated into policy making spaces and not just because they have to be there, but formally recognized, and their inputs being carried across to the finish end, which is not something we've seen, 5 years ago. And again, globally, if you place it like that, the UN just adopted the UN Youth Affairs Office, which is something from 1945 to when the UN was established to 2023. Young people have fought for that representation in a global space, but you can see it takes time for inclusion of young people, but eventually it gets there. And then I've had someone say there's East African Youth, Advisory Board. I didn't know that, but all these models are coming from youth inclusion. When young people are in those spaces, we ask for mainstreaming. What does mainstreaming do for us? We are not here just to be some, show up, show face, but we are here to be functional. We are here to actually contribute to the outcomes. And throughout the process of Summit of the Future, you can go back, and I'm pretty sure for us who documented this process, and we have a position paper on this, we were very strict when it comes to Chapter 4 of the Pact of the Future. And I would love to reiterate that. If you do not get a chance to read the 64-pager of the Pact of the Future, go read Chapter 4, because then that is where everything, all matters to deal with young people is institutionalized. And you can quote that against your constitution. And something that I wish to demystify is Pact of the Future is not actually a global document. Sometimes it is a global document, but sometimes when we put it like that, people are like, oh, so it's a UN thing. It's not something that my country did. But how the document came to be was we did our own consultations in the country, and then it ended up being summarized into a global document. So the global aspect of it only comes from the aspect of all countries now ratifying and saying, yes, I am voting to this, yes, I'm voting to this. But all the inputs that are there are inputs that are from the grassroots levels. And as far as the youth aspect is concerned, we did consultations in 6 Eastern African countries, and we summarized that into a document which we presented during the UN General Assembly last year. And that's how the document came to be, especially for Chapter 4. So yes, we have evolved when it comes to inclusion of young people. What does this mean for us? It means the future is brighter. Today we can get youth advisory boards, and then tomorrow we can get co-chair positions. So we are open to that evolution with time, so that we can see actually things happening in a more structural and recognized way. I would sum it up like that, Timothy.
Thank you, Linda. I'll come back to you, but I think it's a very critical point that you have raised in terms of we should not see the Pact of the Future as a UN document, the way we have primarily been seeing some of these engagements, as this is a UN document, so it doesn't relate with me as a young person. And I think that's a very critical question, because a lot of this, and we have seen that even with the SDGs in terms of localization, how do we get this to the very grassroots, to that young person who's leading a small youth organization, somewhere at the heart of wherever they are, whether they're in Kakuma, whether they're in, in Muranga, whether they are somewhere, in Bomet, with the Mulot boys who are trying to do cyber warfare. So ideally, we need to look at how do we localize it as to the very simple context to bring out components that are very, very critical. And at this juncture, I think I would want to bring in our second speaker, our second panelist, who is called Imelda Achieng. Imelda Achieng is the CEO of the Kenya Parliamentary Caucus on SDGs and Business. And it's very critical that we look at the engagement of Parliament as the legislative arm of the government, and the critical role that Imelda, through the Kenya Parliamentary Caucus on SDGs and Business, plays within this whole framework. So Imelda, what can we be able to do from the work that you've already been doing with the caucus to really drive policy making and action on the SDGs, and really bring the pact home in a way that young people are not driving to Parliament to advocate for change at the gates of Parliament, but in a way that young people are integrated within legislative processes within Parliament, whether within the debates within Parliament, whether within smaller convenings with the Kenyan Parliamentary Association, whether within engaging with other sectoral working groups that are sitting within Parliament? How do we bring the pact home using the legislative arm of government as a tool for change rather than as a tool that young people are fighting?
Thank you so much, Timothy. First, I would like to say that politics, I think by now we have realized that it's an investment really for us. At initial, it appears to be that legislators are just there to represent the interests of the people. But we've now seen that there can be nothing for us without us. So as youth, we need to have a mindset shift of looking for politics and representation as a point where someone else should be the one doing it on our behalf. Yet we have people who are qualified, who know what it takes to be in the political position. Therefore, youth should change their mind and join politics. They should join political parties. They should go for elected positions if we are to stand a better chance at having youth advocate for youth interests when it comes to issues of politics and development. Again, when we go at the votes, we find that youth are the majority voters. And then we find that we end up with very few youth who are elected at the national and the county. So what is the problem really? And is it that people don't find that youth have qualified? If they vie, they're not elected? Is it that we're not having enough youth vying for those positions? Or is it that youth are not voting for youth? So we need to have a genuine conversation. When we are saying we want to fight corruption and the youth are the majority of the voters, are they being corrupted into buying other people who are not qualified? Can youth really focus and be genuine about this conversation and do youth for youth and vie for youth positions and youth voters vote for more youth in these elected positions so that we raise our chances of having our interests put at the national table. Another thing I would say now, other than just having the youth at that table, there are various initiatives at the parliamentary level which call upon the participation of the public, and that is where within our mandate in the constitution, youth should come in. Public participation. All bills that come to Parliament are normally open for the public to give their memorandum and submissions in regards to the matter. Again, committees always also have submissions. So when a committee wants to have submissions on certain areas and it touches on the youth, that's an opportunity for you to write to them and they will invite you. It's your right. They'll invite you and you'll submit on the issues that they're deliberating on as a committee, whether it's the committee on education, whether it's the committee on health. That's again your right as youth to engage. We are also open in Parliament. It's also open to petitions. And you could petition Parliament on issues that affect the youth, and it will be tabled, it will be discussed, and a deliberation will be made. That's again another opportunity for you to plug onto, other than we say, knocking the gates of Parliament. You could also write memorandums to the clerk or the speaker, which will then be considered. Now, we have caucuses, such as the Kenya Parliamentary Caucus on SDGs that I am the CEO too. We have the Kenya Young Parliamentarians Caucus. At the counties, we have KYMCA, which is the Kenya Young MCAs Association. We have KEWOPA, which has women, but of course, it also would advocate for young women rights. So all these caucuses that are there, they drive different agendas, and they are always looking for partnerships. And youth-led organizations can partner with these caucuses to discuss and push legislative agenda and policy reforms. Some of the things that we've been able as a caucus to achieve through such partnerships, I would say we worked on the mental health amendment bill, which became an amendment act in 2022, something that mental health really affects young people. And so we are just trying to look at more friendly and more enabling laws and demystifying the issue of mental health from being a taboo and a curse to understanding that it's an environmental, it's a health, it's a normal day-to-day life issue, and everyone is, at risk of having such a problem, and it is treatable. Again, we've worked on because a number of youth fall within the category of children. Those who are below 18. The new Children's Act 2022, that was also part of our agenda as a caucus. We pushed the new act just also to move on to the new constitution because the old act was one from 2001. So a lot of the rights that we have achieved over time for children had not been accounted for in our laws. So the Children's Act of 2022 then came to do that. We worked on issues like statelessness. A lot of people who were born out of families that, didn't have the birthright in Kenya. The parents didn't have the IDs. They grew up to find that they cannot be enrolled to universities, they cannot be enrolled to work because you then be asked for a good conduct certificate, your ID and such. So we worked thoroughly in the past over the issue of statelessness, and you can we see the president removed a number of this vetting, and they say that let people be given national IDs because it forms part of essential documents that you need to get a job and to earn a livelihood. We are currently working with the people in the education sector to enact certain legislations and policies, but all these things take time, and we would from time to time welcome the views. We are open, our doors are open of the youth to come and share ideas on how we can improve on that.
Thank you so much, Imelda. Thank you so much. I think I want to push back to you and just ask some of the young people who are here representing different youth serving organizations. Some young people here are entrepreneurs driving their own enterprises. Some young people here are, coming from the professional space where they're leading careers in different spheres. How can these young people effectively participate with the caucus in a manner that is representative? What are some of the avenues that you have been engaging already? I have personally been engaging in some of these avenues, but what are some of the avenues that you can, open up that these young people who are represented here, representing other young people here, can know these are some of the avenues of engagement?
So thank you. Every year, the caucus holds an event called SDG Open Day. And this year, we'll also be holding the SDG Open Day towards the end of the year. We normally invite organizations to showcase, to discuss at plenary, and it's normally held in Parliament. On the Parliament floor, there's exhibitions. We normally target about 200 plus organizations. And from that platform, you're able to have a one-on-one engagement with the members of Parliament, senators, all of them, because it's normally a day where Parliament is in motion. This year, we are going to do it even bigger. We want to do a 2-day event moving on, with the first day being a youth pre-summit. And so we'll be targeting young people from youth-led organizations, from the community, from universities, and those who are working in private sector, MSMEs, to come and engage and discuss. And one of the interesting bits is that we are going to look at Pact of the Future as one of the key discussions. So we don't want to preempt and say this is what you want to do for the Pact of the Future. Let that engagement pre-summit come up with the proposals that youth want and a communique that we can adopt as a working document moving on and strategizing and then implementing it into the government policies and guidelines. So that is one of the platforms. We open it up. It's normally limited at some point, but we normally try as much as possible to have all voices represented because SDGs are about leaving no one behind. This time, I believe it will be bigger because having done it in the past, now we realize that we need to make it bigger. So we are going to do it away from Parliament. The venue will be confirmed. Again, we are going to target over 1,000 plus individuals and organizations. So out of that, I think we provide a better platform for these youth to engage with the members of Parliament and members of County Assembly, and also just to network amongst which organizations are doing what in the SDGs, from donor to CSO to CBO. It's very important. Another thing is, as a caucus, we've also gotten a grasp of the digital migration. And so one of the things that we realized is a big gap is access to information for the young people. That is why there's a lot of gatekeeping at the top, because these people have networks and they have communication and they can access information and pull strings behind the scene, because not everyone is aware of some opportunities or what is going on. So the caucus is building a digital platform, which we will launch soon, that will enhance the issue of access to information, networking, and sharing of best practices across. From that platform, youth will be able to access opportunities such as grants, opportunities such as attachment, internships, volunteering opportunities, and so forth. And absolutely, from the comfort of your house. You don't have to know somebody to do something anymore. So that is one of the things that we are looking at addressing in an era of AI and digital migration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imelda. We look forward to the platform that you are looking at launching, and also the upcoming SDG Open Day towards the end of the year. I believe that all this information will be relayed through the Champions for SDG Youth platform, and so anyone who's here just wondering how do I connect with all these different opportunities that are being layered by the speakers, all this will be relayed through Champions for SDG Youth, and you shall be able to be engaged, or your work shall be mainstreamed within the larger context. I will quickly swing into our final panelist for the day, John Linus. John Linus is the chair of the UNESCO Youth Forum, and the UNESCO Youth Forum, as you know, is a subset of the UN agency called UNESCO, United Nations Education Economic Council, and he shall be able to share with us some of the work that they are doing in terms of accelerating youth engagement, especially the young people who are sitting in marginalized context. Someone who is in Kilifi, somewhere in the context of Kilifi in Ganze, where there is very limited digital access and perhaps has not been able to join this forum. How are we able to deepen access to engage or to mainstream some of these supposedly high-level conversations down to the grassroots, to the marginalized context? So Linus, we would like you to share with us what are some of the models that you have seen working, engaging young people in marginalized contexts, from some of the work that you're already doing with the UNESCO Youth Forum, as well as some of the barriers that you have evidenced within the work that you're doing. We'd want to see both the working models as well as the barriers, and then we'll take the conversation back to Linda, who will be wrapping us this session. So over to you, Linus, and we're very, very excited for you to join us, and I hope you can be able to give us that pin. Everyone in this meeting can get that pin that you have on your on the lanyard that you have on your coat. But happy to hear about the work that you're doing with the UNESCO Youth Forum. Over to you.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank every stakeholder who has shared insights, share best practices, and most importantly, encouraging young people to engage in this meaningful conversation. And I would like first to say that we've interacted with a number of people here, sharing what UNESCO do, and most importantly, trying to share information to people at grassroots level, and most importantly, the people at marginalized community, just the same way you asked me. So what I can say is that what works best for people is what we've been doing is going to the grassroots to meet different stakeholders. And right now we've been organizing activities in Kakamega Forest, giving example in Kakamega Forest, community going to have a intergenerational dialogue around people with the community residing along Kakamega Forest. We are also going to Masai Mara and many other places. But a lot of challenges exist, for instance, financial constraints, but that can't make us not to keep up with the good work that we are doing. And I believe that from this conversation, it is a collective responsibility. That is why we share best practices and seeing how best we can many young people to learn. And most importantly, to have information and to argue on evidence-based conversations. So I believe that starting from coming with this kind of action is a big step, and all that young people have shown that everything is possible, and we can start by organizing ourselves. But what we need is how are we strategically positioning ourselves to make sure that we get support from these different stakeholders who have been sharing with us very insightful conversation, and making sure that no young person is left behind. So the most important thing is coming together. A lot of information are there, but what we are trying to do right now as UNESCO Youth Forum is to share information as wide as possible so that many people get this information and try to use them to reason with evidence. And one of the good things that UNESCO has done is that they have translated the Pact for the Future document to a language that Gen Z can understand. And with that, we've been sharing this document online, but a number of young people maybe face challenges in getting this information to to see them, what they entails, what are these commitments that governments are doing, and what are our responsibilities as young people, and how can we hold them accountable. So I believe that this is just a beginning of the conversation. I know we've spent a lot of time here learning from those who are experienced, learning from fellow peers, and the most important thing is information sharing. So I'll request each one of us to pass the information to those who didn't get the opportunity to attend this meaningful conversation, so that they get to know that what is this pact of the future, what are these people talking about pact of the future, what is in their document. And from there, just the same way as the number of speakers have said, that these things are the things we usually engage with at grassroots level. Yes, as we advocate for this on global platforms, but also acting locally. And I want to sincerely thank Arnold here. I'm glad that I'm part of Task Force for Meaningful Youth Engagement from UNESCO side on implementation of Pact for the Future. And Arnold really supported us in coming up with innovative ways and proposed a number of ways on which we can structural barriers that hinders young people as they navigate to, as they try to lead meaningfully. So I feel that all of us has a responsibility, and all of us, I call action for every stakeholder here, every person who has joined us to come on board and share best practices with us, all stakeholders, including non-governmental organization, private sector, and local, national, and even international level, to join us and enhance this collective to build capacity of young people, and most importantly, support us in through idea sharing, give us best ideas to implement, and also support us financially, understanding that there are a lot of financial constraints, but the best way to reach out to grassroots level is to us who have been empowered, who have privileged to have participated in this kind of engagement, to go to grassroots level and share best practices with those people who are making meaningful engagement on ground. So I'll not speak much. I know a number of speakers have dwelled in a very, very detailed information. We've learned a lot, we've taken a lot of notes, and we hope that this is just a conversation. We'll be having a lot of series of this conversation where we can converse, where we can see best ways of engaging and keeping the conversation going and acting on ground.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much, Linus. Really appreciate your sentiments. And before I let you off the hook, I'd like to, just ask you one key barrier that a young person who's leading an organization here or looking at championing Pact of the Future, what is one key barrier that they should anticipate to experience from the work that you've been doing already in driving other youth engagement parameters? What is a potential barrier that they should anticipate to experience, and what is a potential way they can try and navigate that barrier?
Yes, of course, barriers exist, and I want to say that barriers do not cancel hope, and it depends clarity. So I believe that with all these barriers, for instance, you find that a number of youths doing amazing work, but there is no motivation, and I feel like motivation is one way of keeping us going. So calling upon stakeholders to motivate those who are doing things on ground, and it is not a competition. I believe that we young people, if we take this thing as a idea, as a way of learning from one another, acknowledging that every person bring a unique perspective, every person all have different values, and bring these values together, we'll turn these challenges into, we're just making them as a stepping stone to a better society and a better world. And also what I will say is that if we focus mostly, everything is possible only if we have a positive mindset. So if you set a positive mindset, everything is okay. And also trying to get the right people to guide you and get the right mentors. And most importantly, we have the potential people who can guide us here. You can reach out, you can connect you with the relevant stakeholders who can support. And I believe that all is possible with a positive mindset, and we can all live a world that we want to live in. And the future is good when we come together and build it together.
The future is indeed good
And
when
back
we
to you,
come and
Timothy.
build it together. Yeah. Thank you so much. The future is indeed good when we come together and we build together. And I think from picking up from what Temba, one of our primary speakers, spoke about, it's imperative that if we're looking at really localizing the pact of the future, we look at how do we look at forming coalition building within youth-serving organizations that can then enable rollout of these frameworks, not as silos, but as collectives. And this conversation is really focusing on my youth in a pact of the future. And before we go back to you, Linda, I want to pass it back to you, Arnold, to just pick up 2 or so questions that may have been brought out by some of the participants here. And we see how we can be able to have those questions responded to by the panelists before we come to the tail end of this convening. So over to you, Arnold.
All right, thank you very much, Timothy. So Donna says youth leading is the emphasis for the conversation, but how can we get access to the information on the summits and other programs? Possibly we can respond to that. But through initiatives such as ours and those included and represented in this conversation, we are all encouraged to share information whenever we come across it that it can be of benefit to other young people who are also trying to make a difference. Remember, when you light another candle, yours does not become any dimmer, but you pass across the light. One other question is, what role can students, organizations, and student leaders play in making sure the pact comes to reality? And lastly, why was health missed as a key consideration? Maybe Linda could take on that. Back to you, Timothy.
Thank you. I will pass it over to Linda. Linda, as you take up some of the questions that have been asked, why was health missed? And you are part of this conversation. Is it that health has been missed? What really is the position of the health and youth in the Pact of the Future? The second question has been around was also a question around student leaders and engagement of student leaders within the framework of the Pact of the Future. I think, John, you can be able to respond to that. But I also want to pass the other question to Imelda around, how do we then better drive representation of young people? You charge us that young people need to get into the political realm. So as you're doing your closing remarks, I would like you to also respond to these key questions. So I'll pass it over to you, Linda, and then we'll have the other 2 panelists responding as well. Over to you, Linda.
All right, thank you, Timothy, and thank you, Arnold, for the questions. I'll be very brief. Health was not entirely missed out in the document. I think most of these issues we could not go and break down, in terms of education, health, or politics. Most of them have been summarized in, let's say, financing. If you go to sustainable financing, you can find health sector financing in that financing aspect. And then if you go to if you go to peace and security, you can find a sector that has been, talked about communicable diseases or those exposure to those armed, all kinds of health issues that comes when it comes to war and conflict. So that was not entirely left up. It was just summed up in specific sector because it cannot stand in isolation. Health crises, they happen anywhere, in war, in shortage of finances. So for the sake of that argument, yes, it was not isolated as a standalone case, but then was institutionalized under other sectors. But then when it comes to youth, again, specifically, you can find those vulnerable youth financing or supporting youth healthcare or mental health in that regard. I'm pretty sure mental health was mentioned somewhere because that is where most of us were very loud on. So that is, it could be a paragraph because we cannot write a 120 pages and then everyone will not read. So that paragraph, it means a lot. At least it's there, it's mentioned. But for the sake of just timing and because I have to rush into another meeting, I want to say this: localizing the pact does not mean you reinventing the wheel as a young person. It means looking around people who are around you and already working in spaces that you're working, so that you don't get to duplicate efforts. That is another thing that we're struggling as a country. Everyone is doing something on youth, but then it's the same thing, and we have redundancy all over. And that, inhibits efficiency and effectiveness of these interventions that we're trying to bring along. So How about working as a team and then strengthening every intervention and making sure they contribute, something unique and bring something unique to the table that then if you merge it as a team, you have one solid thing that you can actually forge forward with. So do not reinvent the wheel, or work with people around you. Back to you, Timothy.
Do not reinvent the wheel, but work with people around you is a closing remarks from Linda. I'll pass it over to you, Imelda, and then we shall have final remarks from John.
Thank you. So to have more youth represented, as we said, we need more youth to come out and vie for elective positions. But then we also need to look at what are the laws that are enabling of youth to thrive in the Kenyan environment. And one of the laws that has been continuously abused, of course, is the procurement laws, where I know we had some sections of tenders have to be, and supplies have to be reserved for young people to get those jobs. But we all know that people still find a way to work around it and corrupt that. Another thing that we need to look at is the political laws that we have. For instance, the Political Parties Act. One of the areas we've seen politics coming out to defend is the gender, where we've had a lot of fight around the 2/3 gender rule, but still you can see that there's still a gap that is still not being achieved. When we are discussing the 2/3 gender rule, can we bring up the youth fraction discussion, so that as we are going to ring-fence positions for gender, we also need to look at ring-fencing positions for the youth. And that should be a serious conversation that should go hand in hand with the 2/3 gender rule that is currently under review. Another thing, political parties are really now looking at the issue of youth and disability as an incentive, whereas it should not be an incentive. It should be a basic requirement. So that again should be looked at, whereby you find that political parties which have more youth and women and persons with disability into elective positions or nominated positions, then tend to get more political parties fund. As you can see, I think the youth should not be a bargaining chip to make more money. It should be a requirement, and that should be aligned within the election laws. Again, another issue is on the employment laws. We can see our government has tried to align laws in terms of gender balance and regional balance. But what about the youth? That's another thing. We have more youth who are unemployed. So we need to review our employment laws so that we are ensuring that we are accommodating the large fraction of unemployed people into the job market for more positions that are coming up open. The government needs to ring-fence certain number of thresholds for the youth, so that we make sure that we are creating jobs and aligning the youth into the path for the future and the SDGs requirements. Other than that, also is supporting organizations such as the National Youth Council that are here to also advocate for the youth rights, and looking at them bargaining for more resources and more incentive for funds for youth, such as the Youth Enterprise Fund. I think that is the way to go, looking at what is there, what can work, and what reforms would be needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Imelda, for those remarks. Some of these things sound like repetitive. We've heard about some of these things, but I think the reinforcement is what is very critical here, and to actually achieve the path to the future and accelerate the SDGs with the short turnaround time that we have, we really have to drill down and get to do the work. And some of the rallying call that you have just given and the charge that you have given in terms of effectively engaging with the legislature is critical in this process. John, I will pass it to you for your final remarks around how to even engage some of the student leaders within the framework. Some are represented within this call, and some of the insights around the same on what you've already been doing. I would also like you to highlight some of the work that's happening with the digital platforms for Kenya, DigiKen. We know this is already happening with as a joint UN youth program under the joint UN SDG fund. So happy to hear how young people, especially from what Imelda talked about in terms of digital access, what work is being done to accelerate young people within the digital platforms in Kenya, and how that is being structured. So over to you for your closing remarks.
Yeah, thanks once again, and I'm happy for that the students are equally participating in this. And what I would like to say is that leadership must begin by transforming the present and co-creating the future. So the advice I'll give to my fellow, maybe the youth who are now leaders and leading the student organization and maybe different respective institutions that where they are, is that never quit something with great long-term potential just because you can't deal with maybe the current stress at the moment. And we have to believe that the future we are building will be better than the present. And I have the responsibility, you have the responsibility, and we collectively have responsibility to share the information. Information is very key, and to break ignorance, so that you person leading right now, you can share with the team you are leading that this is the information about this. This is what it entails about Pact of the Future. And from there is where the future starts from. So the future starts with you, and the future starts now. And the thing I would also like to say is that about Digital Kenya is a very fruitful and a very good program that's carried by UN. This is to leverage young people trying to create meaningful change through entrepreneurship, through digital transformation. And it has been being implemented, and not only digital, there are a lot of programs that are there at UN being implemented by UN Women. There is Girls Code program where girls below age of 25 are being advised to apply, participate in code boot camps, and a lot of opportunities. But what I would like to say is that if you see these opportunities, the best thing is to share them. Those who are interested to apply, but also most importantly is we are ready to guide, we are ready to share best practices how to approach this application and see that no one is left behind. So from this conversation, I would like us to maybe share the information that we've learned here with a number of people who didn't get opportunity to join on different social media platforms, see how best we make sure that all the youths are informed and stay in touch. So thanks very much. I can't wait to learn more from you, and I can't wait to connect with you and share the valuable opportunity at UNESCO and every opportunity that we have at our disposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John Linus, for your closing remarks, and we look forward to engaging more with the UNESCO Youth Forum, as well as some of the other works that you've already talked about. I know one of our speakers, Stephen Gishohi from the UN Resident Coordinator's Office, was very engaged with the digital platforms for Kenya. Didn't mention it, but ideally it's important also to look up DigiKen. DigiKen is putting up about 15 hubs across the country, looking at about 6 of these hubs to be spread out across different parts of the country. And this meets one of the key priorities of the Pact of the Future, which is called the Global Digital Compact, which looks at deepening or reducing or bridging the digital access barriers that we currently have, so that young people can be effectively engaged in participatory methods of decision making across board. I want to pass back the meeting to our convener, Arnold. And before I do that, I want to highlight 2 key things that have come out from some of the final speakers. One key thing that has come out from Imelda from the Kenya Parliamentary Caucus on SDGs and business is a key convening that's coming up, a 2-day convening that they are looking at doing the SDG open day. So this is very critical so that you're able to mark it within your calendars early enough. And I believe champions for SDGs Youth will be able to share with you some of this feedback. Please follow the WhatsApp community channel that has been shared on the chat group to be able to get continuous updates week on week on what's happening within the ecosystem. The second key thing that's also coming up November 4th to the 7th, which also will build up on what we're already doing with the Pact of the Future, is the Africa Youth SDG Forum. This is the 6th session of the Africa Youth SDG Forum that now will be held in Kenya. And the National Youth Council, the State Department for Youth, Youth Alive, and Champions for SDGs Youth will be part and parcel of this, as well as some of the other players, some of the UN agencies are represented here. And we look forward to seeing how you can be part and parcel of that. I think it's important to bring that out as well. And last but not least is the upcoming International Youth Day. We know this is August 12th. So if you are within the context of your community, see how you can be able to utilize the International Youth Day as an avenue to advocate for the Pact of the Future and the recommendations thereof that can help accelerate youth engagement and streamline youth engagement within the Pact of the Future. With those final remarks, my name is Timothy Gashusha, and I'd like to pass over the meeting back to Arnold, who is our host for today, and the amazing team that is also heralded at the very apex by Budoi, who's a good friend of mine from well before. As we finalize, please share on the group just one or two things that you have picked up from this conversation, even as Arnold does the closing remarks together with the rest of the team. Over to you, Arnold.
Thank you very much once again for that very insightful panel discussion that we've had. And one key thing that I'd like to highlight right now is we all have a role to play in localizing the Pact for the Future and advancing the SDGs. There is something we can do, no matter how little. Your efforts counts. So at this point, let me welcome Ms. Gitonga to give us the vote of thanks. Ms. Gitonga.
Hi, Arnold. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Arnold, I hope I'm audible.
Good evening. We can hear you. Yes, we are able to hear you.
We can hear you. Please proceed.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this amazing session, amazing forum. It's been an amazing 2 hours. Thank you for everyone who's really endeavored to keep time, despite there being a wealth of knowledge to share. I'm so grateful, and on behalf of all the attendees and the organizers, we're grateful for this great platform to exchange knowledge and information regarding the Pact of the Future and its various annexes and its nexus with the SDGs and how the youth can be involved in the implementation of the Pact alongside the SDGs. Particularly, I want to thank our partners, the SDGs Kenya Forum, the UN Resident Coordinator's Office, the National Youth Council, the UNESCO Youth Forum Kenya, the State Department for Economic Planning, and of course, our very well-informed panelists for the wealth of knowledge that they've shared and the interaction to answering the questions, disseminating the information regarding the Pact and how the youth can be involved in various capacity. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to create and tailor solutions and actions that are by the youth, for the youth, to ensuring that we create a sustainable future for us also. Thank you very much, and we'll continue engaging further on social media. We'll have more forums, so be on the lookout. Continue engaging with the SDGs, champions for SDGs Kenya. Be on the lookout on our social media platforms, and you'll continue being informed. Thank you so much.